Christos from the Ugly Kings. Welcome to Nightbreed. How's it going, man?
Thank you for having us, Ben. I'm very good. You know, beautiful Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning over there, huh? Still?
Yeah, that's right, mate.
Yes. I'm good. I'm here in my lockdown garage, converted home office, converted studio, so to speak.
Yeah.
The acoustics are not that great, but you know, we do what we have to do.
Yeah. So was that set up because of lockdown, or was it already there?
It is. No, the garage was here, but it was predominantly for storage. And then when we started working from home from like March last year, I was working in the house. Eventually got too much because my partner was working from in there as well. So we decided to dedicate the garage to myself, convert it into a home office and storage as well, of course.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, I've been here since March last year.
Yeah,
So,
wow. Yeah.
There is no windows, right? So I'm in the darkness all day. You can see like Christmas lights up the top.
Wow, man.
Yeah. It's something.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting in there for my vitamin D deficiency. You know?
Yeah. Oh, man. So I guess if we start at the start, yeah, like how'd the Ugly Kings first get together?
It's quite a story. So it was actually back from sort of finishing uni kind of days. I met the singer, the Russell. I was going to say, I met Rusty the singer randomly at a video shoot. So what was happening is that this girl wanted to have a video for her masters. She was studying film. And she pretty much wanted myself to be a thug that was going to beat up some guy at some bar. She saw me out the front of RMIT, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to participate?" And I was like, "Sure." and rocked up to the shoot, and the other thug was Rusty. So I mean, we didn't exchange any details. We did what we had to do. And then literally a couple of years later, I see this guy at the gym and I'm like, hang on a minute, I know this guy from somewhere. I've got no idea where I know him from. Eventually clicked where I knew him from. We had a chat. He said he was a singer. And I was like, you know, when people say they're singers, right? I'm kind of like, yeah, sure you are. I was like, I play a little bit of guitar. Eventually we had a jam and I was like, holy shit, you can actually sing. So, and you sing really well. So then we started off as an acoustic thing, to be honest. And it wasn't the Ugly Kings to begin with. We didn't really have a name. We just sort of mucked around, and he was a drummer. So eventually he got behind the kit. We had another guitarist, and then we kind of did this like blues rock, almost like Black Keys kind of vibe style, and White Stripes, sort of very basic kind of drum beat with him singing and drumming. But eventually we thought, hey, we should get a proper drummer and get you to be a proper frontman. So then we did that. Eventually we got a bassist, that guitarist left, and sort of it had this organic evolution. We didn't start saying, okay, this is our vision, this is what the band is going to be, and we go from that. We all had similar influences. We all liked Jack White. We all liked that kind of like blues rock, garage rock style. I mean, I love always like Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi and those kind of riffs, and then you sort of it organically evolved. So
yeah, that's cool. So what's the writing process like? Are you bringing riffs and the other guys are kind of adding to that, or is it something different?
Yeah, it's a variety. Majority of the times it starts from a riff, and then Rusty sort of brings in his vocal melodies, but for this album, we took more of and I mean, previously for the first EP that we released and the first album that we released after that, it was always kind of like, here is a riff, now you have to work out how to sing over it. Whereas now we're like, okay, here's a riff, but then I'm going to consciously write a chord progression so that I can guide your voice. You know what I mean? So then it became, in the end, it became more melodic, and we all sort of collaborated on that. And our most recent drummer, he's a fantastic songwriter as well, because he studied music too, and he just brings so much to the table. Not just because, I mean, he doesn't just play drums; he can play guitar, he can play the piano a little bit as well. So he brings those ideas on the table too. So it will stem from a riff most of the times, and then Nick will bring in. Nick is very our bassist. He's very melodic as well, from a perspective of technical ability, and so collaboratively we would write. But we would always in this album have this thing in the back of our minds that how can we actually help the voice more so than previously, instead of just sort of going, here's some music, now you work it out. Yeah.
So is Rusty just writing the lyrics on his own, or are you guys kind of collaborating and talking about ideas?
No, Rusty is predominantly writing the lyrics. I mean, he would come to us with certain ideas, and then we would sort of like maybe collaborate a little bit. But I would say like 99 to 100% of the times, he will have a skeleton of where he wants the song to go, and then he will tweak it as he goes to get the right message across. Certain things, change even to the last minute just to make sure it all sort of like cohesively fits together. But he's the lyricist after all. Yeah.
Cool. You mentioned Jack White and Sabbath and things before. Are there any bands or albums that all of you as a band get into? Like when if you're hanging out together or whatever, what are you chucking on?
Well, with lockdown, we haven't hanging around too much, to be honest. But it's, I mean, dare I say that probably Sabbath would be a common thing between us all. But between Rusty and I, we would sort of go down the path of a bit more of the blues rock stuff. Between Nick and I, when we drive, let's say, to shows, when we used to drive to shows, would put on bands like, for example, Rival Sons. And actually, that's another really good one. So if I was to say that all of us in the car driving, we would probably put on Great Western Valkyrie by Rival Sons. Nice. It's a fantastic record. It's so good. And we all love that style of music as well. So, yeah, I remember when I first heard I discovered Rival Sons quite a few years after they were around, right? So I discovered them in 2014 for that album, and that song opened my eyes, and it really opened my eyes to a new band and pretty much their entire back catalogue at the time. So yeah,
awesome. When you were playing shows, what kind of bills are you guys getting put on? Like, is it kind of blues rock stuff, or do you get put with other different kinds of bands? Like, what's the normal?
No, we had. It's interesting actually. We have gone from the sort of blues garage indie rock all the way to the full on metal. So, for example, if lockdown lifts, we're playing Helen Bay here in Melbourne, which is the Bird Cruise. And that's with Desecrator, that's with Hybrid Nightmares, Soul Dusk. So you're talking about like black metal, thrash metal, the Ugly Kings, and we're none of that stuff, right? So, but from an overall vibe, we have played with those bands, and I mean, one of the most awesome receptions we've had is when we supported Airborne on their Breaking Out of Hell tour here in Australia, and it's like Airborne and us. Very different sounds, right? But that is actually what made the night, and the reception that we had from those shows, all three shows, was so good, right? I did not expect it one bit. I mean, yeah, okay, you have a support band, and a support band is there to fulfill a certain role, right? But to have that level of reaction to our music was brilliant. And then when we were discussing that with Airborne too, it was sort of the fact that it made a night that is a variety of music. So you get our sound, and then you get the classic kind of Airborne sound that everyone knows about, right? Whereas if you had a band that sounds like Airborne, being the support band, people would perceive that perhaps, oh, you're trying to be Airborne, or you're trying to compete, or whatever, and it doesn't work as well. But yeah, it was a great one, and also we actually supported Rival Sons when they played a sideshow at Cherry Bar of all places after their Black Sabbath gig support in Melbourne, and that worked out really well. So you've got that blues rock element then from both bands, and then we supported Papa Roach 2 nights in a row in Melbourne, and that worked. So it's strange, but it's good. It's really good that we can go with metal, and we can go down the path of the indie garage rock, and would still be able to fit a bill.
Yeah, that's cool. So you guys are on Napalm Records. how'd that come about? That's a cool, that's a cool signing for sure.
It's amazing, actually. It came about like late last year. We were approached by Napalm late last year, out of the blue, actually, and they had known us from the time we released our previous album, because we released it through Cosmic Artifacts in Germany as well, from a physical perspective for records in cities. So they kind of knew of us from then, and then 2 years later in 2020 they approached us and said if we were interested, if we have new material. So we started the conversation then, and then eventually signed it towards the end or start of this year, pretty much. And it's been crazy since, right? Because it's gone so fast, and that's the thing. Like previously, we recorded the album, the Darkness album, in 2016. We released it in 2018. Here, we recorded the album after a snap lockdown in February, early March. Had the mixes done in April. Had the artwork done at the same time, and we put out our first single in early June, right? So it's been really fast. So yeah, it's really good.
Cool. What about the songwriting for this new album? Was that fast as well, or is these songs that you were kind of brewing away already?
They were brewing. We were actually meant to record this album in March 2020. But what happened is then lockdown, or the first kind of COVID outbreak happened, and we all worked from home. So then studios closed, so we cancelled that, and then we entered the full lockdown. So we had the songs, but then the songs evolved over our lockdown time. So 2 new songs were added that were not in the sort of list previously. We dropped other songs that we had in the list previously. Not that they were not good songs, but we thought that this is more cohesive now. These 10 songs are more cohesive. So, and there is good enough variety as well between them all. But then when we started jamming again, and even after we started talking with Napalm, literally the songs got fine-tuned in those last few months, even down to the point of like the actual recording, 10 days recording in the studio. So, we had the songs, we had the big skeleton kind of thing. New songs got added, and then they were technically refined just before we went to the studio and recorded them. Yeah. So yeah, it's funny how it always works that way. And when you get into that pressure cooker environment of a recording phase, then you hear back certain things and you make some really fast decisions, and hopefully they're for the better. Yeah.
Cool. Talking about the 2018 album, Darkness Is My Home, what do you remember about recording that one, like your first full length?
It was fantastic, actually. And the thing, we recorded that in kind of like separate sessions. So we recorded all the instruments, and then the vocals were done at a different studio later, like a month later or something like that. And it actually, I suppose at the time, it gave time to Rusty to finalize certain bits about his vocals in those songs. But the difference with this album is that we decided we will spend a longer time in the studio, but we're going to walk away and the thing will be done. So we won't have to revisit it. So the decisions that we make in those 10 days, they're done. Lyric decisions, vocal melody decisions, overdub decisions, everything, right? So we literally walked away with the full package done in this instance, and we didn't go back to it. And then it was all the mixing process. I think that the previous one, the other kind of way works as well, but then what tends to happen sometimes is you get the time to think about more options. And when you do that, then you can kind of like, I don't know, kill it perhaps sometimes, or you can very vastly improve it. It's just kind of like, at the end of the day, it's like a decision. So you end up thinking, right, which way should we go with this one? And you end up deciding, and then that way is the way that it goes. And to a degree, you never know what would have happened if you did something different, right? So it's the creative process of making decisions. Yeah.
So April 16th.
Oh, but
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was going to say. was going to say the previous one, it also tended to be that it was. I mean, we recorded both albums live, and then we did overdubs, right? And then of course vocal overdubs. But in the previous one, like all the, for example, solos and licks and all the rest of it were done live as well. This one we made the conscious decision, all right, let's work on that, on a solid rhythm section, and then build it up from there. But largely speaking, both recordings were live. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, and one more key difference. We never recorded with a click before. This album is everything to a click. And it actually worked. Like, I never thought, I was like, back in the day, I was like, oh, no, stuff this. I'm not going to record to a click. It annoys me, right? But it makes life so much better and easier when you record to a click. I've come around like fully on that aspect, and I'm like, nah, I'm never recording again without a click. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You've got to have a click, especially when you're coming back and overdubbing and stuff. It's so much easier.
Exactly. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. April 16 this year, you guys brought out Killing Time at the Cherry Bar. A live recording of
Yes.
when the Cherry Bar reopened. How'd you go recording live? Like, I've never done that before. How was that go?
It was actually like a last minute decision. Like, I've always wanted to have live recordings. I didn't actually think that we would end up with an album from it. I thought, all right, well, we can end up with a couple of songs, just to drip feed into the funnel of the streaming platforms, in between releases, and remaining active and relevant during this time. But it was a last minute decision. Like, literally, we had the show planned, and then I thought, I spoke to the sound guy, who happened to be our previous drummer, doing the live sound, and then I was like, so how do we go on about getting a multi-track recording out of this? And he's like, we need this like little external plug-in device or whatever to get it out of the desk. So I went and I hired one, and brought it in, and then he set it up, recorded it, and off we went, and we just played the live show. It was not anything different or more elaborate than us playing any other show, right? So it was just that then we had the files that we could, mix afterwards. So, and then we gave it to Julian, who's the guy who actually co-produced and recorded this new album, Strange Times, as well. And he managed to pull an amazing mix out of it, honestly. And I was like, this sounds really good. And then we went through the songs, worked through the flow, and make it sound like a continuous thing on a record setting, and I reckon it turned out great. Like, I didn't think we would get an album out of it, and we decided just to do a digital release for it. We thought about doing a vinyl for it, but we're like, no, we'll focus on. We knew this album was going to come out straight after, pretty much, so we'll focus on this new album. But in the future, we might do a vinyl release for it as well. Who knows?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually talking about re-releases. You guys put out the Of Sins re-release late last year. What made you decide to go back and put out that again with the unreleased tracks and stuff?
So I'm a big believer that you shouldn't hold back on songs, and in the past we held back on songs, and we thought, right, like, oh no, is this good enough? Is this not good enough? Should we release it? Should we not? And lo and behold, like, we ended up not releasing a whole ton of stuff over the years, right? And then we lost files, and different people we worked with, and so on. But the thing is that I reckon it's better to have the story, as almost like, here is the progression of the sound of this band, right? And then you go through time and you release stuff and you evolve, right? And people can go back and hear that evolution over time. So we had songs that we had released at some point in time, then we had taken them down because we're like, oh, the Ugly King sound has changed and so on. And I'm like, no, stuff that. They're still good songs. Like, technically, they're still Ugly King songs. It's still us writing those songs. Yeah, okay, we perceive they might not be as good as other songs, but who knows? People may like them, right? And it was coming up to the whole point of the whole time that it was actually, we released the the EP on the Friday the 13th of November 2015, and ended up that 5 years later, it's exactly 13th of November is also Friday the 13th. And we're like, well, this kind of works. So we went back, spoke to our engineer who was with us for a number of years, and checked all his archives, and he had plugins that had expired and all this stuff, right? But eventually we managed to retrieve things and put out those unreleased songs and release the deluxe edition, which I thought it's a cool thing to have, especially when you have release dates that line up perfectly on a 5-year milestone. So normally bands do it on 10 years or whatever. They have the 10-year anniversary edition or something like that. I'm like, stuff waiting another 5 years. Let's just get this out there. 5 years is a long time.
Cool. Well, that's funny. This Friday the 13th of August, your new album comes out, Strange Times. You got another
Absolutely,
Friday.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, all three of them now are released on Friday the 13th. So, yeah.
That's cool. I guess, I like what I've heard. What can people look forward to with this new album? How's it different from the last one, do you think, in the way it sounds?
I think it's punchier, it's faster, it's from our perspective, it's better, it's more melodic, and it's got more variety as well. So there's a variety of songwriting. There is some heavier riffs in there, some heavier sections, some more kind of punky moments, some more doom moments, some heavy blues moments, some sort of murder ballad moments with Lawman, for example, and it's got we tried to also, from a voice perspective, get a little bit of that Nick Cave out of Russell as well, and feature it in certain moments. And I think it's worked out on certain songs, so that people can hear when the album is out. But it's stronger, faster, better. That's what I would say. So, and more cohesive, because there is an end-to-end message that works out to be. I mean, even from the artwork perspective, on the vinyl and the CDs, we actually have illustrations for every single song. So, almost like a comic book thing, where people can visually and audibly is the word, sort of get into it and understand where that character came from and where that story came from. So, and all in all, it's a cohesive unit in an album, I believe.
Cool. Tricky times at the moment, obviously, with COVID and everything. But what are the plans for the Ugly Kings in the future? Are there shows booked?
We were meant to play. We haven't said this, but we were meant to play a show in Sydney on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right, which we never in the end announced, because we're like, there's no point, it's not going to happen. So there are shows booked. There is an Australian tour that is booked or formulating, but we find ourselves every week having to rethink whether to announce it, when to announce it. The only announced show right now is the first one, which is 4th of September at the Hell in the Bay. And we hope that will go ahead. But with his most recent lockdown in Melbourne now, who knows? Touch and go, right? It's 3 weeks away or something like that. So we'll see. But ideally would be announcing a tour sort of next week, after the album is out, with dates. And hopefully we can stick to them, right? Who knows? But and we would love eventually to go play overseas, right? We would love to go play in Europe, and with the help of Napalm, potentially we can. But again, it's up to the whole COVID situation here and there, and the timings of that. So we'll play it by ear.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, Christos, thanks for your time. Best of luck with the new album. I hope you get some sun soon and you get on the stage. And again, thanks for your time. It's good to have a chat.
Thank you very much, Ben. Very much appreciate it.
Yes, man.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.